Welcome back to the Respect the Drive podcast. I'm Tedward here at Garage 42, where I store my cars. But Garage 42 is more than just car storage, it's fleet management. And boy, did we use that today, because my guest on today's podcast is one of my good friends, Aaron, who is also a Garage 42 patron, but he's a car enthusiast, a collector. He has a variety of cars. And every so often, Aaron calls me and says, hey, we got to do some back-to-back drives with some of his cars. So some of the cars that you've seen me drive of his, the Strosek Porsche and that Ferrari 328, that was a back-to-back drive that he suggested we do together. And it was a blast. I think that video did really well, and it was fun to see what the in-period competition was like back then. Obviously, a Strosek 964 is pretty rare, but to drive a 964 next to its contemporary Ferrari is very exciting and fun. So in addition to that, we've driven his SLK Rentec, the only known manual Rentec SLK to exist. Pretty cool car. And then today, we did a triple. We drove his 997.2 Carrera S green over tan compared to the Audi R8 V8 with an S-tronic gearbox, so that's the dual clutch, and then next to his Aston Martin V8 Vantage with a manual transmission. That was, I believe, a 2010. So 2014 Audi, 2009 Porsche, and 2010 Vantage. Which do you buy of these three kind of miraculously good sports cars, and how do they differ? So we did a triple back-to-back drive of these cars, and one of them didn't make it back. It's not the one you think, but luckily, Edwin was with us. Edwin is the operations guy here at Garage 42. When things need to get done, Edwin's the one who does the thing. So he also is the delivery guy, meaning he, whether he's driving cars and swapping them in people's driveways, or if he is delivering and dropping off cars with a flatbed truck that Garage 42 has. And thankfully, we had the flatbed with us today, so Edwin just drove straight back to Garage 42, picked up the flatbed, picked up our downed car, and we were on our way. Made life very easy because this is a kind of a silly issue on a car, but it rendered it limp moded, so it wasn't going anywhere. We needed the tow truck, and that's one of the beautiful things about Garage 42 is that you can go and play with your cars knowing full well that if something does go wrong, you're not going to have to call some inexperienced tow truck driver from AAA who's just going to yell at you the whole time after 2 hours of waiting, and then you're going to have to turn him away because he's using silly blocks of wood that aren't good enough to get the car up onto the flatbed. He's going to scratch your carbon lip and all that good stuff. So anyway, all to say, we've got a good show. It's supplementary to the video that I did about these cars, but you can listen to this on your own if you'd like. And then we talk a little about collecting and what his collection is and what the reason to be for any of these cars really are. So if you're into cars, if you're into collecting, if you're curious about what it looks like to compare cars within this sort of $60,000 to $75,000 range, which is a pretty popular grouping of cars, I think, especially on Bring a Trailer, this is probably the show for you. But it's also just nice to have a conversation with an enthusiast. But I hope you're doing well. I hope you're excited to lock in and listen, or just have a conversation, or yell at the phone that or the speakers that you're listening to this on because you know the answer before we do. All fine, all good. This is what we like. So, without further ado, here's Aaron, and we're talking about our little drive in these three beautiful sports cars. So we're sitting here with Aaron, who I've known you as a collector for years. And I met you originally through your Hammer.
Yep.
I don't know if I'm letting any cats out of bags here, but you've got a great little collection. But the car I knew you for the most was with your black AMG Hammer. And the moment I knew you were the proper car guy was I was swapping cars with somebody in Concord, and I pulled out of their driveway in my M5. And there goes this black 4-door Hammer. And I said, oh my God. And I pointed, and you pointed because I was in the M5. And then it clicked. I realized, oh, I know that guy. You immediately pulled over in a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot. You said, hey. I said, hey. And then I got in your car and we went for a drive. You drifted it out onto Route 2, laying a really lovely patch of rubber. And I said, oh, this guy is a real one. And that's when I knew I think I should be around this person a little more often.
Yeah. No traction control in 1987.
No. If you want to bring this a little closer, yeah, almost like you can manipulate this however you'd like. But yeah, that car, it just blew my brains apart. But then I found out, well, you've got some other toys as well, and that's where we are today because a few of your cars are very similar. You have buckets, and we can talk about that as we go through too. But today we tested out 3 of the cars in your sports car bucket. That was the Aston Martin V8 Vantage, the Audi R8 V8, and a 997.2 911.
Yep,
Carrera S. And it was really fun because we pulled up to Garage 42. I pulled up to Garage 42. Edwin already had the cars out. They were warmed up. They were like ready for action. It was cool to see them all together. And I immediately had preconceived notions of I'm going to be the Porsche guy today. I'm going to want this 997. That's all I'm going to want. And I've driven all these Astons. I've driven the R8 before. I've reviewed that R8. And then everything kind of changed. We have a scoring sheet. So why don't you explain a little bit of your methodology here? Because this was really fun. And I think more people should do this as just a weekend exercise with their friends.
So, when I was a teenager back in the 80s, I would read car magazines and they always had these comparisons, right? You get 2, 3, 4 cars, run them up against each other, all similar cars. And it just blew me away that you could get all the nuances out of the cars themselves through the writing and the experience of these back-to-back drives. And I've done it a few times with 2 cars just to see the differences. I know we took out the 328 and the Strosek 964
That's right.
a couple of times. I've done it with things from the 50s, and it's really interesting to see cars side by side. But what's interesting is with the cars we did today, I've had the 911, the 997 Gen 2 for years. I mean, a very long time. And I picked up the Aston Martin a couple of years ago. It was similar type vibe, but it was a car that I think was really beautiful and always was curious about it. And then ended up the same thing with the R8. And at some point dawned on me, I was like, hey, wait, these are the 3 cars that were always talked about when the R8 came out.
Yeah.
There was just endless amount of reviews comparing the R8 to, is it the 911 or the Vantage? And can either of those cars, kick out the 911 from being the premier car that everybody talked about, the premier sports car? So anyway, I really wanted to approach this like an old school 80s comparison drive. Right? 3 people take out 3 cars. At the end of the day, you score it and you figure out which one do you want to, drive home in.
Yeah. Our third was Edwin from Garage 42, who he manages all these fleets. Like he's the boots on the ground here at Garage 42. So it was very cool to have him join us as well, because I know he loves these cars. This is the stuff that he likes to do too. So it's nice to be able to get him some seat time in these as well. But we all, I think, approach things from a slightly different angle as well. I mean, you're an owner, but the nice thing about your ownership is you have such a variety of things that I know you basically can't be you're not sensitive or insulted if I say, oh, well, I like this better. Well, you own both of them, so it's fine, or you have this because that's different. And I think that's fun. Whereas, if you played this game with 3 people with each of their own cars, you may end up in a situation where you're just shitting on one of your friend's cars.
Right. And everyone's going to be biased to want their car to be the one that comes out on top.
Exactly. So we started out, I started out in the R8 because it was what I was most familiar with. And I understood that, and I came away with the exact same interpretation of the car that I originally had after I drove that 4.2 liter. It's the S-Tronic, so it's a dual clutch. That transmission is like unbelievable. It's so good.
We all gave it 5 out of 5.
We all gave it a 5 out of 5. And because it, relative to early PDK, it's just so smooth and seamless and silky and almost like it has an efficiency to it that makes it feel like a proper daily driver. It doesn't feel like a, automated manual. Whereas I think early PDK and those 997.2s has a little more of that clunkiness to it. It's a little more sharp. It's a little more aggressive. It feels like it'll upset the chassis more than the R8. But again, we had such a cool variety of cars because just setting this up even further, we had a front engine, a mid engine, a rear engine. We had an all-wheel drive car, 2 rear-wheel drive cars. We had a manual Vantage. We had a PDK 997, and we had an S-Tronic automatic DSG, whatever they want to call it for the Audi. Yep. But when you go into buying these cars, what goes into selecting these? Because if you are already in the 997 space, which I think was the first of the three that you owned, what then triggers a Vantage purchase? What then triggers an Audi R8 purchase?
So in each of these cases, I try and look for what's the right spec for me as a driver to really drive them a lot and enjoy them, right? So the 911 was the first one. Wanted to share it with the family. So I got a PDK. There's members of the family who don't drive manual.
Sure.
But also with this particular car, it was the launch model of the 997, the second generation of the 997.
Yeah.
So Porsche made about 200 of them, gave one to each dealership. It was a green color, it was Porsche Racing Green Metallic with the beige interior.
It's a handsome car. It's it's held up well because now green over tan is like the thing. Blue over tan works too, but green over tan like is
You look
so
at these
sought
things
after.
selling on Bring a Trailer, and it's a 10 grand premium
Isn't
for just
that
the color.
Wasn't that the configuration of that crazy Cayenne that just sold on Cars and Bids? Didn't someone just buy some manual green over tan Cayenne V6 for like $110,000?
More now, like
125,
120 something. Yeah.
Crazy. So yeah, it matters.
So it matters. It matters. So for that car, wanted the PDK and just loved the color, loved the fact that it was this special launch model. Went around and tried to find the right one. Eventually found it in Naples, Florida at a Porsche dealer down there and picked it up. So that was years ago. The Aston Martin was 2 years ago. I picked up that one. And it really, the second generation with the 4.7 liter engine, manual transmission, because I tried driving the automated single clutch and it's tricky.
It's tricky. It requires a lot of finesse with the throttle because if you want to smooth it out, you have to be lifting and it's very unnatural. The LFA is a little bit like that, but it's not. I honestly don't think the LFA is as temperamental as those Astons.
They're very temperamental, those transmissions. The manual, it's nice, right?
It's pretty good.
The engine sounds great. So you can really, if you just want to kick back, you can control the sound with the manual transmission. It's very good.
It is a staggering sound out of that. It is shouty like a Mustang. Like it has that sort of like grunty howl that permeates the forest that you're driving through.
A grunty howl.
It's really wild.
It does.
It has, but it's not as hollow as a Mustang. I think the Fords typically have more of like a hollow sound. This has it has depth. It has a real like resonant depth to it that hits your soul in a way that, you know, this is why I'm not going to bury the lead. This is why that car came out on top for me today. And I didn't expect it. I just forgot how
because
cool
of the
the
sound.
Vantage. Yeah.
Interesting.
And the sound foot connection. There's something about getting into the throttle just a touch and getting like 10x the joy out of the exhaust that you were expecting.
And it's a 6-speed, right? So really when you're driving on some of these roads, you're just in second and third gear.
Yeah.
And you can really just control it so nicely and control the sound. And then you hop on the highway, throw it into 6th gear, it'll cruise. What was interesting about this car is Aston Martin really saw the Vantage as the sports car. So I actually also looked for one that had a sports pack as an option.
Sure.
So it dials up the suspension and the steering and everything.
And that's all static. That's not
all static. Yeah.
I mean, that's the car. You get in the car, that's the car.
It's A or B, right? You either get the base or you get the sports pack. There's no adjustable suspension like the other two cars that we were out in. And then with the R8, I always would read about how that car was a daily driver supercar.
Yes. That's how I've always felt about it.
And so when I looked for one, I really stepped back and said, okay, let me try and find a daily driver version. What's the ideal daily driver? So V8, so it started there instead of the 10. And then the dual clutch transmission.
Yeah.
And they only made them in 2014 and 2015 with the dual clutch, because before that it was a single clutch, automated single clutch if you wanted an automatic. And to look for one, relatively low mileage that could pick up, that was V8 dual clutch. They're actually hard to find. Like these both the Aston and the R8, very hard to find because the spec I was looking for was not a common spec. And so at that point in the R8's life, most people were buying the V10.
Okay.
So getting a V8 with the dual clutch.
Everyone wanted a V10 manual at that point.
Everyone wanted the V10.
That was the thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to have you see if you can get this right in front. So that way you're always talking directly. Yeah, perfect. That's
there
perfect. Yeah. Sorry. I'm just, so V8. Okay. And today, when you what's your selection process when you're actually driving these cars? Like what triggers you to say, ooh, this is the R8 drive, or this is the Vantage drive, or this is the 911 drive? Because the 911 at this point in your collection, it's heavily used. I mean, that's like your daily. That just kind of looks like a car that you just use all the time.
We do. It's over 70,000 miles. It's my wife's favorite car to drive of all the ones we have. And the summertime, that becomes the summertime driver, and has been for many years.
Yeah.
So for the other two, last summer, I really tried to make the Vantage kind of the summertime driver. And this year I've tried to make the R8 the summertime driver, just to get to know these cars and get a feel for them. And so I would say that's where, if you look at the last 3 years, there's the go-to for what are you going to drive on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I also have a high mileage, small beat up SUV that driving bad weather and everything else. So really, these are for going out in a normal summer day. And the Vantage has become something that really enjoy on like a Saturday morning, like that manual transmission, the sound of it, even like the smell of the car. I mean, it's amazing. Like you go in and you get in. I feel like it's something for special occasions. The R8, I've had it now this year, still kind of getting used to it. It's a pretty incredible daily driver in terms of actually acting as a daily driver. It lacks on trunk space, so you got to
not
plan
necessarily
accordingly.
It's a solo weekender,
right?
Yeah. If you've got a partner who packs heavy, you're not
taking that car. That's for sure. And the visibility is tough. I mean, it's a proper mid-engine kind of junior supercar.
So it's funny you say that. I think only from the perspective of the rear quarter,
right,
is that I am blown away by how good the visibility is for the rest of the car, though. Like I think out of the front and sides, because the door sills are below the shoulders, the front of the car, the windshield is not that steep rake like a Huracan or an Aventador. It actually is kind of it's I mean, it's not vertical, but it's a lot more vertical than horizontal than you'd think. When you look at it, and that lends itself to a ton of headroom in the car. So I found that like, as long as you're going faster than traffic, it's great visibility because you don't have to worry about anyone coming up on your flanks.
That's right.
And I think that lends itself to the daily driverness of the car. But I think I always forget what I'm driving when I drive it, because it's so easy, and because you're looking at a pretty maybe not the right word, but like standard Audi dashboard.
It's a pretty standard Audi interior.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
which is a strength, I think, because it's robust. Like we drove those 3 cars today, and it's really weird when you come away. I mean, I know it's a 997. It's basically a repainted interior of a 996 in some ways, similar materials. But it really, I mean, my goodness, to go from a 997 to an R8, the R8 feels like 3 echelons above in terms of interior quality. It's really impressive.
But also I think, the difference there is this was Audi's halo car. They needed it to be that way, right? Because this was now going to get people to buy all the sedans and the TTs and everything else that they sold. Whereas the 911 is sort of Porsche's standard car. Yes. Right? I mean, this is the iconic car that's been around since the 60s. It's not necessarily the halo car. Right now, certain versions of the 911 may get into that, but they're really track versions. So I do think Audi put something a little extra special into the R8 for that reason.
Fully agreed. So people can see what we thought about these cars in the video, but it is worth, I think, going through our I think the sheet, with or without our scores, I think is a really interesting evaluation tool. I think this is fun because we took engine, transmission, brakes, handling, ergonomics, comfort, ride, value, fun to drive, and then an overall rating, which was more just your perception of the car, like an overall rating, not based on any of the, I mean, it's based on those things, but not mathematically.
And I got this from a 80s comparison of a Camaro, a Mustang, and a Firebird. Right. And it was great. The Car Magazine, these were the categories that they had: 1 to 5 rating, super simple, overall rating, again, also 1 to 5.
Yeah.
Totally separate from the rest.
It's tricky. So we had one mishap today, which was that the 911, while I was driving it, and you'll see this in the video, we had a fuel pump failure. So it just started, it went into limp mode. It drove, but it was certainly not going to see any revs. And I discovered this on the highway at about 93 miles per hour, because I remember that's the top. Now I know forever that's the top of third gear in a PDK 997, because I had my foot to the floor, and for about a second or a second and a half, I wasn't moving forward anymore. I wasn't accelerating, and I was like, why am I still at 93 miles an hour? It wouldn't upshift to fourth. I said, okay, so maybe there's like a clunkiness to this transmission. Maybe this is a ding against the gearbox. And then when I got off the highway, just as we were pulling out, and I'm hearing you rip on the Aston and Edwin's in the R8, I get a limp mode code. Yeah. And so I had to just piddle along behind you in what should have been the most reliable car of the fleet, I believe. I think, or at least
has the perception of being the most reliable.
Definitely. Yeah. So I had to knock down the engine on the the engine rating on the 997 simply because of the day we drove it. But that's not necessarily true. But everybody ranked the Aston Martin above the R8 and the 911 in terms of engine, because I think that 4.7 liter V8 from Aston is just astronomically fun, and it has such a broad power band. The Audi does not have that. The Audi down low is neutered. It's like, whoa. And then you have to remind yourself what you're driving, because you look at the red line at 8,000 and you go, oh, that's why I have no power. I got to get the juice up. We got to.
What's interesting about that is the Audi is a 4.2 liter, right? 4.2 V8. The original Vantage was a 4.3 liter V8. And the knock against it doesn't have enough low end torque. So they enlarged it to a 4.7 when they did the revamp in 2009.
It feels great.
And it feels much better.
I've driven both, and I do remember. And the problem though is that I drove the 4.3 with a single clutch automated, and that was rough. It was
That's rough.
It sounded really good, but it was a rough day.
Yeah,
it was not the easiest thing to drive. It was so clunky. It was just, I felt so uncoordinated. I felt like I was wearing shoes too big or something.
Yeah, you have to spend a lot of time. I mean, for the people that have them, they've talked to you, had to spend a lot of time figuring out how to adjust the throttle when it shifts. Which basically means you're always driving with flappy paddles in manual mode, right? Because if it's in auto mode, it's incredibly clunky.
Yeah. We all gave perfect scores to the brakes on the Audi R8. Which
great brakes.
I thought that car is so overbraked. It's amazing. How rare is that? You almost never get an overbraked car unless you're playing like a Porsche GT game or something. It's tough to get that out of most vehicles. Usually they're adequate, or you're like, well, these are the street brakes, and I'm going to throw on some more aggressive pads or something like that. But this R8 really, I mean, you get into those brakes, there's a real confidence that you're going to be able to bring that car down. For me, the handling on the R8, we all voted that the lowest of the three, and I think that's the nature of the car. I don't think it's a ding against it. I think it's because it's the daily driver supercar that it's a little safe. It's a little modest. And for me at least, I always noticed that car is very much in an understeer mode in a corner, in a sustained corner. You're going to just be managing the front end for the whole entry, maintenance, and exit. And it just doesn't have the same turn-in confidence.
What's interesting about that? I mean, I feel like at this point on the handling on those three cars, we're really splitting hairs, right? At the end of the day, all these cars handle incredibly well. The 911, the front end, it doesn't have a lot of weight on it. And so it just feels alive.
Yes.
Like the steering and the handling just feels alive as you're driving it, right? And maybe part of the handling is really the steering. The Audi feels a little heavier, but if you're just spending an hour on the highway, it's a much better car.
To me, the Audi is an Autobahn burner more than a tight back road, a playful thing. And in the steering ratio goes to show that it was designed for that ride comfort on a long drive versus a tight corner, because you're pretty much hand over hand in that car on corners that you're kind of shocked you're going to be hand over hand in, which is funny because Audi and Lamborghini took a completely opposite route on that in the next generation of Huracan and R8, because those cars, a sneeze will send you across 3 lanes of traffic in those cars. Whereas in this car, I'm finding myself like, oh, I need to add more lock. This is kind of shocking.
You do have to add more lock, and it's heavy. So not only do you have to add more lock, you have to mentally think like, oh, I need to keep pushing.
Yes, there's actually some effort involved in it. Whereas I think the 911 I felt was the most like raw Miata-like experience, because everything is light and tactile, and it responds instantaneously. There's no unnecessary damping, and I think that's where the Audi and the Aston Martin, they are also luxury cars. Whereas Porsche at that point, I don't think they were really identifying that car. Like, it had luxury items in it, but I don't think its driving experience had real like luxury in mind.
Not really. I mean, that was the era where they were starting to turn the 911 Turbo into their luxury car.
Yeah. And you can tell by the steering feel, because the Aston it's damped in a way that you can tell was engineered into it to make you feel more solid, to make it feel more luxurious, because there's no twitchiness. You'd never be in a corner in an Aston Martin and see the wheel move.
Right.
It would just be set and release. Whereas in the Porsche, you're going to be with it the whole time. There's going to be some motion with it, and it feels a lot more direct. And that direct feeling is more akin to like a Toyota than it is to a Bentley, and that I think is a real like lively thing about the 911. Whereas the Aston is definitely more tuned to make you feel like you're in something special and luxurious.
Yeah, and this particular Aston has the Sport Pack, right? So they made those little extra tweaks to make it handle better, make it handle like truly like a proper sports car.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious about an R8 versus a base model, not but the a Vantage without the Sport Pack.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't surprise me if they have a similar feel to them.
Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is value, because this, I think we all just immediately agreed that the Aston Martin is the value play. We all gave it a top score for value out of the 3. Then next was the Audi R8, and last in value was the Porsche. I mean, you're looking at about 60,000 for an Aston, 70 to 75 for the Audi R8, and probably in the realm of 65 to 75 for a 997.2, depending on mileage, condition,
if you have
spec.
comparable mileage, it's going to be the same as the R8. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. So I mean, 75 grand. That's the thing. It's like what you're getting bang for buck. That it's just, how do you beat that Aston Martin?
It's hard. It's really hard.
It's got mystique. It's got class. And then because of its shouty exhaust, it's a little trashy in all the right ways. Like it does the two things. You get to wear the suit and like pound the shot, but you're doing a shot of like Pappy Van Winkle's like $37,000 bottle of bourbon. It's not a PBR. So it's really neat. Like, I think that car just gives you so much and it delivers. You just have to have the stomach for the Aston Martin ownership experience, because it's not as accessible for mechanics as a Porsche or an Audi.
It's not. I mean, not at all. But I will say it's surprisingly reliable. I mean, this was the era where where Ford owned Aston Martin, and so they borrowed a lot of parts from Ford that just actually held up over time really well. So it is a surprisingly reliable car. I actually don't think any of these cars are too unreliable. Maybe proven wrong today.
We did have a tow truck
with the 911,
but that's like a moot point. If it's a high pressure fuel pump, like whatever, it was time.
It was time.
We just happened to get it on the right day with the camera rolling. It was, the odds of that are incomprehensibly slim. But I think that's just really interesting that not only did we say it was a top tier for value, but it was also top tier for fun to drive. And like, if we just removed everything else from this and we had 2 categories, value and fun to drive, what more do you want? That's pretty good.
That's exactly right. Right. So I kind of look at it as, if you're going to go out in a car for 30 minutes, this is by far the one you're going to choose. You have a ton of fun. It's going to sound great. You're going to, when you finish your drive, you're going to walk away. You're going to look back not once, but 2, 3, 4 times at the car. I mean, there's just so many things to like about it. If you're going to go on a day-long trip where you're going to drive 2 hours somewhere, 2 hours back, which I've done in all these cars, hands down, you're taking the Audi R8.
100%.
Right? It just has that as you say, Autobahn type cruise to it. And quite frankly, if you're going to then go daily drive something, it's the 911. You chuck your stuff in the back seats. It has the best visibility.
100%.
You sit up a little bit higher. Everything just sort of works, right? Other than the fuel pump.
You sure?
And so I really think, like, although these cars are very similar in nature and they're same price point new, they're kind of the same price point used, right? They fit different purposes.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the beauty of this price range is there's I guess in the other direction, there's a seat for every ass. Like there's a car that can fit the personality of the driver. And they all look, similar on paper in some respects, because we're talking about similar power, similar displacement. It's well, I guess the Porsche is a little low on that, but it is pretty wild what you can get out of these cars with completely different configurations, yet they all exist for basically the same purpose.
It's exactly right. They're the same purpose vehicles, but they feel totally different.
Now, so we've done this, but if I can pick your brain a little bit about your collection.
Yep.
So feel free to say whatever cars you want to say. I won't out you for what you have, because your collection is varied and interesting and eclectic, and everything has a purpose and a reason. But you were discussing buckets for me the other day, and I really liked this ethos of how you build a collection and what you would put in each bucket and what each bucket represents. So can you do that off the top of your head, or is that something that we need to draw out? Is that am I asking too much?
No, I got where you're going. So for me, like, cars serve a purpose, right? And if you're going to have a collection, and more than just a static collection where you go and look at cars, which, by the way, I think is fantastic.
Sure.
I mean, the smells and the sights are all amazing. But I feel like there's a few different types of cars. So first off, you have your sports car. And to me, that's a 2-seater convertible manual transmission. Horsepower is not so important. It's the engagement, the enjoyment. You're driving it on back roads, right? It was that car. Then you have the GT car. Okay, you're going to go take a 2-hour trip. Where are you going to go? Probably an automatic. It's got some interior space to put your stuff, right? A third car is a supercar. Just want something, you wind it out. You want something that feels like completely alive at that moment in time, right? Then on top of that, I feel there's like true collector cars, incredibly unique, one of one. You're not going to find it anywhere else. Has good story to it. Quite frankly, it doesn't even matter the type of car it is, but it's really about the story and the collectability, and it's how iconic is it in history. And then I think it is like a daily driver car. Like, what do you want to just get in every day?
Yeah.
And go. And then the last one is there's a classic. So you want an old school sort of driving experience, right? And to me, those are like the 6 categories of cars. So I try and have one car in each of those categories. Sometimes there could be multiple cars in one, as cars coming in the collection and before another one leaves. And that happens to be the case here. Although interestingly, for me, I thought of the Audi R8 when I got it as one of those daily driver, the 997 was that. The Vantage came in a couple of years ago as almost like a replacement for it. And I thought of the R8, but the more I've driven it, the more I see the R8 as kind of like a GT car.
I've had a hard time placing that in, I don't know which category, because when you first see it, I think, oh, like, oh, supercar. Then you're like, okay, wait, it's not a supercar. Then you think, okay, it's a sports car. But then you drive it and you're like, this is really comfortable. So then you're like, wait a minute, is it a GT car or a daily driver? And it fits. The R8 is actually the weirdest car because it fits in a lot of buckets.
Fits all those buckets.
And if it was
that's
one of
the
those,
brilliance of it.
what's the special edition one? Didn't they make some special edition Audi R8, like an Audi R8 GT?
They did a GT,
and then it fits in the collector.
That is a collector category.
So.
Then it's actually a supercar category. So the interesting thing on the R8 is if you go a V10 and like a V10 GT, you start to get really into a supercar.
Yeah.
Right. I do think the V8 is underpowered enough you couldn't view it as a supercar. But I'll tell you something. I don't do many track days, but I did do one in the R8 a few weeks ago, and was out there with 488 and the new 296 sort of Ferraris and Corvette Z06 and a few other cars. Z06, by the way, was just unreal.
The new one, the new C8. Oh my God.
Unreal on the track.
Doesn't it sound, does it remind you of, and I'm going to out you on this one. Does it remind you of the 458 that you drive occasionally?
It does, and it should, because that's what they benchmarked for that car.
Yeah. It's got the same vibes.
Yeah.
Like there's a little bit of that where you go, oh, but then it's just stupid fast.
But I'll tell you something, the R8, with the exception of straight line speed, was right there with all of them.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. And then I went back and looked at some of these old articles of when the R8 actually came out, and it was shockingly fast on track. And so you look at that and you're like, okay, is this... Yeah, it's a junior supercar, but like with the V10, it becomes kind of a legitimate supercar. What's interesting, I don't think people view it that way, because they look at the Lamborghini, say, okay,
that's the one.
The Lamborghini is the supercar.
Yeah.
Right. The Audi is either the poor man's version of the Lamborghini, right, or it's a sports car that's a competitor to the 911.
Yes.
You kind of have to, it gets bucketed into one of those two. But it's really, the more and more I drive it, the more I realize it's not really a competitor to the 911. The 911 is a sports car. The R8 is more of a GT car. So maybe it becomes competitive with like a 991 and 992. But it's not really in the same, it doesn't give you the same experiences as a 997.
Yeah, it's really tricky. That car is just, it's so contextual. You have to have a context for what you're doing in it to put it in a category.
Yeah.
But that's great that it was on a track. I mean, that must have been a really fun experience to like just consistently wind that out. Cause it's geared a little, I could be wrong here, but in the way I feel, I always feel like I'm having a hard time keeping it in the power band, because I think it's geared a little tall. And so I find myself, if I'm really revving it out, it's because I'm being a little bit of a lunatic. Like I'm going faster than maybe I should be. And I feel like a racetrack with that engine would be really satisfying.
It was. Because with that engine, you do want to keep the revs up if you want to really get on it. And on the racetrack, no problem doing that. I mean, it's geared really, really well. You got the, paddle shifters just to fly through with the dual clutch. You just fly through the gears. And once and the brakes are great, right? So once you're on the brakes into the turn, I mean, it feels like a proper planted supercar.
Yeah. My first R8 experience, other than the newer version, I think I was driving a rear wheel drive converted. Now that's not really true. All you do is disconnect the front drivetrain. So conversion is a little aggressive of a word, but it was a stick shift V10. And we were just being lunatics through like Boston tunnels many years ago when I was, slightly less cautious, I suppose. But I was with the right group of people to be doing stupid things in their cars. But it was just a hoot to like blast through this in this, but it never felt quite, the manual R8 of that generation always felt like an afterthought. It felt like a conversion. Like it felt like someone had taken an automatic and created a manual swap, because even like the clutch, nothing felt quite right. So I always thought the S-Tronic was the correct gearbox for that car.
Yeah. And after today, I mean, it's again scored 15 out of 15 from the three of us. Like it's an amazing transmission.
It's phenomenal. Ergonomically, I think it's great. I think, the only one that we didn't score great on ergonomics was the Aston. And I think it's just because your elbow ends up in the cup holder when you're shifting it. And that's just a weird thing. And it hits like that little nerve right behind your elbow because there's like this really beautiful metal like bezel that comes out and around to like hold your cup in.
Looks beautiful.
It's gorgeous. And it just, you hit it and your whole hand tingles and you go, oof. And so you'll do that on a hard one too. And then you'll have to like, it's like you're being electrically shocked.
But the problem is that you would never actually use the cup holder if you had a manual transmission car.
It's true. Like, you couldn't.
Your elbow would just constantly be hitting your drink over.
Yeah, I drive it as if there's some big tall thing that I'm, my arm is basically vertical. I shift it like that bus driver in that video. Okay, so I think we've kind of like exhausted what we thought about these cars. Are there any cars that you almost put into these categories that you've bid on or that you've thought like, hey, this would fit one of these buckets? Or is there something in this realm of that $60,000 to $80,000 price range that you've had your eye on?
Oh, great question. There are a few. I would say the top of the list is the BMW 1M.
Oh, yeah.
And now you could also throw like an M2 comp in there as well.
Sure.
Right. So one of those, or probably equally, do you want something earlier or later? I think that's a great car in this category. In fact, it's a little bit of a different design spec from these, right? It's not getting up into 400 horsepower blasting down the road, but I think that could be in there. Low mileage. So sticking with the BMW theme, you can always go low mileage E46 M3. I think that's a really interesting one. Again, different feel, but sort of that category.
Yeah.
I'm partial, as you do it, to a Porsche Boxster.
Yes.
Like I think the right Boxster is just, to me, that's the answer to every car question. Is like, it's a Porsche Boxster. Right?
Yeah. What more do you want sometimes?
So to me, that's the almost like the definitive sports car that I mentioned earlier, right? 2-seater, convertible, manual transmission, horsepower doesn't matter. You're just going to go take it out. Going a little bit older, I think, just a little bit, I think the Z3 Coupe. So get the M version of the Z3 Coupe.
Yeah, especially if it's got that S54, because that does put it in that kind of price echelon at that point, because those appreciated like crazy.
They did. So that S54, low mileage S54, M Coupe. And again, if you go back to the day, like the E46 M3 is celebrated a ton. But the period reviews all talked about how the M Coupe actually drove better.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's really, really interesting.
They make a great sound too, because you get a little bit of a greenhouse going on with it too.
Yeah,
and it's very poorly insulated in the back. So they are pretty raucous. And all right, so we could talk about car. We're always talking about cars and like, what would you buy? How do you use your cars? Because I think this is the thing that I keep coming up against with my own driving, is that I drive a lot of cars, but I drive cars to evaluate them. I drive cars to kind of show off the experience of the drive. But oftentimes I like a mission. I like having a reason to go somewhere. So if you said like, if you said, hey, Tom, you ranked the Aston Martin the most fun to drive, take it for the week. Well, it would probably just sit in my driveway because I wouldn't drive it to work. Unless I had like a mission for it, like, oh, I'm taking it to this show or I'm going to this particular place, I would need a reason to be. So how can you, I guess, is there anything you can do, whether it's for me or the listener or yourself? What inspires you to take a car out? Where do you go? What do you do? Why take a car? What is the point? How do we use these in a way that's actually the thing we imagine them to be, and more than just like, well, I guess I parked the R8 at work today. Like, what's the dream, and whether you're enacting and living this dream or not, like, what would you like to be doing with the cars?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say I'm halfway there. I probably spent too many hours driving the cars to get something fixed and picking them up from, getting the annual service or whatever. Fortunately, Garage 42 has helped out a ton with that. So that's freed up a lot of time to actually do things like today.
Yeah.
Right? Take out 3 cars. I love doing back-to-back drives with similar cars. I really do. And so a few of my cars, like if I get one before I sell the one it's replacing, I'll just take them out back to back and take a Saturday morning, be like, all right, for an hour or two. So that's one. I really enjoy going on a like a day trip. Try and get off the highways if you can. Maybe go for 30 minutes to an hour somewhere, but then off the highways. It's important to have a destination, because I feel like just aimlessly driving, at some point I'm like, all right, well, there's all these things I have to do in my life. I might as well just turn around and go home.
I do the same thing too. That's why I need a mission.
Yeah. So one thing is like, just pick, like for me, like you just pick something, and say, like, all right, well, today I'm going to go to this event, or I'm going to go to this spot. One of my best trips was, it was fall foliage. I looked at, 10 best places in New England to view the foliage from. There's some mountain in the middle of Massachusetts where you can drive to the top. And one day I said to my wife, okay, I'm going to go drive on this. Do you want to come? She's like, awesome, let's go. We just hopped in the car in the morning and did the drive. So I just picked that because it's a fall drive. I need somewhere to go. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful because once you have that destination, I then go to Google Maps and I try and map out, okay, what's a fun way?
Yeah, let's not just take the Mass Pike. Let's go out and figure out what's something else we can see along the way. You bring up a huge point, is you do have to have, like, I always need a reason to be. I need a destination. I need something. And it can be as simple as I heard they have a good hamburger. Yeah. That's fine, because in the aviation community, that's the $100 hamburger. It's more now, but back in the early 2000s, because you'd make this, you'd rent a plane, you'd fly it 100 miles, maybe to Martha's Vineyard or something, land, pay your landing fee, go in the little store, get your hamburger, and then fly home. But that was enough. It was expensive, but it was just like, well, I wanted that one. I didn't want the one down the street. So yeah, I think you're right. You've got to just pick something, whether it's a location or a meal or something.
So it's interesting. I always talk about how cars are the ultimate form of art because they hit all 5 senses, right? So you get to visually see the car. When you're driving it, you get the sense of, feeling, right? And stuff. When you get in the car, or even around the car, you can smell it, get to hear the engine and other things. Like, think about the Aston today, but you can always drive it to a favorite joint to get something to eat. And then, so you're satisfying your final sense of taste.
Oh, it's the best. Also, there's something really satisfying is parking your car in a new location and just looking at it in front of a building. This is why 7-Eleven has really figured out their marketing on this.
Or even better yet, driving by a glass building.
Oh, the best. There's a building in Bentley University right before you get back to Bond Group. And there's a light there, and if you're lucky, it's turning red, and you get to go real slow.
I know that building. That's a great building.
It's really good.
That's a great building.
And every time I've thought, like, I wonder what I look like in this car, I look over, and there it is. That's the thing. And when you pull up to, the restaurant, or maybe it was like a little rainy, or you got some grime on the car on the way. Like, there's something I did this in Vermont the other day. I pulled up to the Trapp Family Lodge in this 992.2 Porsche, and it was disgusting. We had gone down some dirt roads, and it had rained, and it was just purely filthy. The car couldn't have looked better, cooler, more exciting. And I was so satisfied with the vibe of what we parked in that parking lot that day, because it looked like we earned it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when we went to that bike shop while we were waiting for Edwin to bring the tow truck for the 997. I was talking to the guy, and I told him, I'm like, oh, I'd like to get some fatter tires for my road bike, because it'd be nice to kind of convert it into a gravel bike, because I got stuck on all these sandy dirt roads in the Cape a few months ago. I was riding from like Harwich.
Riding on that like rail trail?
Well,
sort of thing, or were you on a road?
I was on a road, but then Google Maps was like, this is the road, but it was all these like really nasty dirt roads. Oh. And I thought, oh, it's only going to be about 800 feet of this. So I went for it, and I said, oh, it's probably only another 800 feet. Like 4 miles later, I'm discovering that I've made a massive mistake trusting Google Maps. But I had to like unclip, I'm getting filthy. My shoes are all banged up and stuff. And these are like expensive stuff. All the cycling gear is pretty expensive. But now it looks well worn. It looks like I'm a proper cyclist, because this shit isn't nice and fresh and white, and it's all beat up. And I'm like, it's the same with the cars. You kind of want the car not to be crashed, but to be grimy. I love a grimy car when you've earned the grime.
Yeah, when you've earned the grime, it's great.
It's a fun experience. Like if somebody photographed an F40 at Pebble Beach, okay, but the photo that goes viral is the one of it going sideways on a dirt road and then, parked up in front of something filthy.
The one that actually did go viral. There's a guy in Boston with a Ferrari Enzo, drove it to Pebble Beach.
Share the Enzo.
And just, all the bugs on the front and everything
it's
that's
filth
on the front of that car, totally filthy. But you realize he just drove across country. Like that is just the most amazing looking car. It's all grimy, but it has a purpose.
Yep. And I think even like some of the carbon body panels are a little cracked and stuff, but it's just leave it because it's like he earned that stuff.
Yeah.
That rock chip is because he was going 100 behind a dump truck or something. It's like, it's cool.
It sustained there's some real damage on it by the time he got back. I actually saw that car right after he got back, I actually saw that car at the service bay at Ferrari New England. Just happened to be there when I was there. And, it definitely, it saw some better days.
It's seen some things.
At the same time, you're like, wow.
Well,
that's amazing.
We're here for a good time, not a long time, right? So,
that's right.
And that's the thing. This is the tricky balance. And this is what I like about, all right. So I feel like you're a little like me in the sense that you want to use all your things, but you also have some crown jewels in the collection. And that's the trick I think that's why people end up with 15 cars is because they say, oh, well, that one's actually too nice. So maybe I should go buy this one. And so like you have some cars in your collection that are like pristine, really gorgeous. You still drive them, but they're not necessarily the cars that you're going to take on that long road trip. Whereas like I could see you taking that 911 anywhere, the R8 anywhere, the Vantage pretty much anywhere. And that allows the crown jewels of the collection to remain as such while still getting the experience in other cars that you still respect and enjoy.
Yeah. I think that's the collector category for cars, right? These are cars that they're iconic, they're unique, try and get them as low mileage, as best condition as possible. Absolutely. And quite frankly, sometimes when you drive them, you're really nervous. If you're behind a truck and the truck is spitting out, rocks from the tires, you back off, not a little bit, like a quarter of a mile.
Yeah. I've definitely been like, ooh, we're going to test the brakes on this.
Yeah. So it's, to me, that's its own category. And for me personally, I like having cars and different variety of cars in all these different categories. So different makes, different types of cars. I think other collectors, like they'll have single make collections, like they're all Porsches, all Jaguars, all Ferraris. Sometimes and one person that had a fairly large collection who is all British.
Yeah.
And so there's certain themes. Some people collect supercars or hypercars, and they have just one of everything, right? So I think everyone has their own unique your personality when it comes to car collecting. For me, it's variety.
Yeah.
That's what I really, really enjoy.
No, it's fun. And I think your car collection comes from a place of driving enthusiasm, not necessarily just opulence or, oh, it looks cool. Like I can see that what you collect are things that you're like, oh, I'm going to enjoy operating this thing. And that's sometimes unique because a lot of people do just collect things because they're pretty or because they're opulent or because they're unobtainium. And those are all fine. I'm not judging anybody's collection, but I always like to see, like, when you've brought something in, my first question is usually why, because I don't know what bucket you're filling sometimes, but it's fun. But anyway, I think that'll do it. I want to have you back on a bunch of times because this was a good precursor to introduce you to the listeners. You have a wealth of knowledge, primarily from what I've noticed, at least, about pre-merger AMGs that like literally doesn't exist outside of the realm of like being a judge at a concourse. I've witnessed it happen multiple times where someone has sent you an engine number, and within too short of a time period for you to have Googled it, researched it, looked into some document with a database of these, you already have knowledge of it, saying, oh, that's an early one, and that means it's this. And we're like, what? Like, I can't tell you how many times I've been in a room with someone else who's messaging you multiple different people, and gotten a reply, and we all jaw on the floor and go, Aaron. So I think that will tee you up for the next time we're here.
There are definitely folks that know a lot more about pre-merger AMGs, but the good thing is it's a small community. We all know each other. I get to learn a ton from them, and then can kind of pass that along. But yeah, no, would love to come on, especially if we want to talk about pre-merger AMGs. It's to me the ultimate like understated hooligan sort of car out there.
This is fun today, just because this podcast is like supplementary to the video, because we kept talking. So it was like, well, why not record it? And if someone wants to listen to it, great, enjoy it. If not, I'll always have fun knowing that this conversation was on the mics. So thanks for joining. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
And thanks again for letting me experience these back-to-back drives with you, because it's really fun. And also I feel two things. I feel like I feel privileged that I'm invited to do it, but two, I feel like I'm doing a bit of a service where you get to see your car while you're driving your other car, because
absolutely, like
they look really good.
Pulling out, I pulled out in 911. You and Edwin behind me, and the other two. I look in the rearview mirror. It's just a huge smile on my face.
It looks so cool, and it's funny. It's wild how having an R8 or having an Aston Martin or having a Porsche, all great, somehow together, it's greater than the sum of their parts. They look really cool on the road together, and it makes a lot of sense.
It does. Yeah.
It's odd. But anyway, thanks again. And appreciate it.
You're sure thing.
So what do you think? Is that the collector that you hoped for? He's cool. He's got great cars. He's got good taste too. And I like that he's got discerning taste about the cars that he buys, but more in terms of condition and quality than in appearance. He doesn't need them to look a certain way. He doesn't need to look a certain way. He's just into good quality cars that are going to give him a good quality driving experience. And then he's got a few little crown jewels that maybe we'll reveal in later episodes, because I can't wait to show you some of the stuff that that he has found at auctions. Just mind-blowing stuff. But anyway, you do have to have an appetite for the occasional fault, and we certainly incurred that situation today. So thank you guys so much for listening. Thanks for watching the videos. Thanks for supporting the Patreon. Thanks for supporting the channel. Don't forget to respect the drive, and we'll see you in the next one.